Well, I think it's the transition with new offensive coordinator Chad Morris. And to run Chad Morris's type of scheme, especially from an offensive line perspective, you need very slim, athletic offensive linemen that can run up tempo. That wasn't the MO of Auburn, that has big physical offensive linemen, much like Wisconsin, in going back to his days when he took over Arkansas with Brett Bielema's team. So the transition is going to be a growing pain type of situation, and they've been winning very ugly right now. But when I look at the series overall, very close games. LSU has won 3 straight in the series by 2.6 points per game. Won this matchup in Baton Rouge with Joe Burrow 23-20. It was a 10-point game before DJ Williams scored and made it a 3-point matchup. I like Auburn's offense right now. They're 3 straight games rushing for over 200. They pounded the rock last week for 224 against Ole Miss, and I'm still not sold, even though TJ Finley stepped up against South Carolina. Can that consistency on the road in a rivalry game hold true for this LSU offense? And let's look at their defense as well. They allowed 165 rushing yards to South Carolina, 5.6 yards per carry. This defense as well, in terms of the secondary with Bo Pelini, giving up 344 passing yards per game. Bo Nix has faced this defense before. Give me Auburn. I think they strike the upset over LSU today. One of my better picks for this coming Saturday. Quarterback, I like the speed of Memphis's offense, but more importantly, Mike, the Memphis front seven holding opposing offenses to 100 rushing yards per game, 3.2 yards per carry, playing at home, much better team. And I equate this spread in terms of the dominance of UCF to last year, Virginia Tech, where Virginia lost 14 straight meetings to the Hokies. They got the outright win the last game of the year. I think the spread is not indicative of the dominance. Give me the 2.5 points. Give me Memphis on the money line.
Does this line seem right to you, or do you expect Minnesota to be able to bounce back here? Rashad Bateman back in the mix, obviously, with Minnesota.
Well, dynamic performance for Minnesota and PJ Fleck last year, 11-win season. They knocked off SEC opponent Auburn in the bowl game, and they have a solid quarterback in Tanner Morgan that did throw for 30 touchdown passes last year. But this game comes down to 2 factors. I think Michigan does have the better defensive front entering this matchup. You look at some of the defensive pieces lost by Minnesota. Carter Coughlin's gone, their big play defensive end. Antoine Winfield Jr. from that secondary. They lose Tyler Johnson that led the team with receptions, and they lose 2 running backs in Shannon Brooks and Rodney Smith. I think that could force Minnesota into long third down situations. And this was a Michigan defense last year that held 7 opponents under 100 yards rushing. They were 7-0 in those ball games, won those games by 26.4 points per game. Since 2000, straight up, Michigan in the series 12-2 against the Golden Gophers. I like Michigan to dominate this game, 10 points or more on the road in Minneapolis.
The up against the clock questions that Kofsky and John had for me. Julius Randle over under 33.5 points and rebounds today. Is that something that could interest you?
No, I think they're going to double team him today. I think the defensive mindset for the Clippers is to take away Julius Randle, force other players like R.J. Barrett, force other players around the perimeter to step up, and that's where the Knicks haven't shown consistency either. Playing on the road, I think this is a difficult spot. Even though they lost 2 straight, a young team, they're not battle tested yet. Maybe next year, but at this point, I think that's a bad bet right now. Yeah, I'm going to point out the negatives for Zach Wilson. I think if you're a Jet fan, you would have much more production with Sam Darnold as your starting quarterback in 2021 than Zach Wilson. I'm sorry. I understand he completed 70% of his passes, but to me, he's a raw Baker Mayfield coming out of Oklahoma. He does utilize the tight end, and I think that's the one positive attribute that you could say about Zach Wilson's game. But go back to 2019, struggled against Utah, struggled against Tennessee, struggled against Washington, all Power 5 competition, Mike. That doesn't translate well to the NFL. And the offensive line that he had playing in front of him, where he had basically 4 seconds to throw on every pass attempt, is not going to happen this year for the Jets. So we'll see how it plays out. I think he's a raw prospect, 2 or 3 year type of project.
Buckeyes finally get back onto their winning ways. Michigan had the hubbub against Maryland. How do you view this game?
I'm going to take the points with Ohio State here. Two ugly games against Purdue and Minnesota, and they found a way to carve out two victories and advance to face the Michigan Wolverines. Now, Dickinson was non-existent yesterday, 6 points, but it was Mike Smith. You know, we talked about a month ago, which is the most important player for the Michigan Wolverines, and we both agreed it was Hunter Dickinson. I think it's Mike Smith right now. He seems to be the spark plug for this offense, but again, I think Ohio State does not fear Michigan. It's a rivalry type of atmosphere. They might not win, but catching 6 points on a neutral court, give me Ohio State plus the points, baby.
Syracuse and Houston. I think this is the most difficult game to pick because everything Syracuse does well is what Houston would not do well against. Houston is a pick and roll team. Don't shoot that well from outside. Syracuse is the best team in the NCAA against the pick and roll. How do you see it?
This is my best bet for the evening. I love Houston here. I picked Houston to win it all. I think this is just a bad matchup for Syracuse and Buddy Boeheim. I think they're going to make them work on both sides of the ball. And even though Houston is not a consistent shooting team, I think they're going to outwork them on the defensive side of the ball, wear them down even when they have to work for shots. They're not going to have these wide open threes that Miles McBride and West Virginia gave them last week. They're going to fight through screens. They're going to make Syracuse work on the offensive side of the ball, and that's where I think they can wear them down and then get easy buckets as this game progresses. They're minus 230 on the money line and minus 6.5 in terms of the spread. I think they win this ball game by double digits. I said it before, Keith. They're going to bludgeon Buddy Boeheim in this matchup.